Hello and welcome to Understanding Your Immune System by your Give Vaccines a Shot team here at Science North. My name is Melissa Rose and I'm the staff scientist today who's going to be talking to you all about your immune system. We're going to talk today about what makes up our immune system, how it works to keep us healthy, and how it helps fight off disease. We're going to start big and then we're going to move our way to the smaller parts of our immune system. The largest part of your immune system is also the largest organ of the body, the skin. Yes, your skin is part of your immune system. Your skin is a waterproof barrier that secretes oil with bacteria-killing properties. It helps protect against injuries and infections. It regulates body temperature and helps control loss of body fluids. So if you think about all the hair on your body, it all plays a role, from the hair on your arm to the hair on your eyes, so your eyelashes. So you also have small hairs inside your body that help. These are called cilia. These cilia line your respiratory tract, which starts in your mouth and nose, but the cilia also line the inside of your lungs. So your lungs are also part of your immune system. They have a mucus layer, or phlegm, that traps foreign particles, and those small hairs, or those cilia, wave the mucus upwards so that it can be coughed out. Sticking with things that are around your mouth, your tonsils are also part of your immune system. Some of you may have them, some of you may have had them removed, but they are part of your immune system's first line of defense. They're located in the back of your throat, and they help trap pathogens from the air you can breathe in and the food that you eat. And speaking of food, another set of organs that are part of your immune system are your digestive tract, or part of your digestive system, the stomach and the intestines. They have mucus linings in them that contain antibodies. As well, your stomach actually has acid in it, and that acid is strong enough to kill most microbes. So let's dive in a little deeper. Let's talk about lymph nodes. They're linked throughout your body by the lymphatic vessels, and they act like a highway around your body to help filter out harmful substances. Your lymph nodes are bean-shaped glands that contain immune cells, also called lymphocytes, or a type of white blood cell that monitor and clear out damaged cells. This includes cancer cells. When you get an infection, you may have heard that these become swollen. Another filter in your body is your spleen. So your spleen filters your blood and removes old or damaged red blood cells. Your spleen also makes disease-fighting components of the immune system. So this includes white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets. Another organ that's part of your immune system is your thymus. So your thymus is an organ that's located in your upper chest, beneath your breastbone, or behind your sternum, that makes specialized white blood cells called T lymphocytes, or T cells. What's interesting about this is that it's actually made most of the T cells in your body even before you've reached puberty. The last part of the immune system I'd like to talk about now is our bone marrow. It's a spongy tissue located inside the bone that produces the red blood cells our bodies need to carry oxygen, the white blood cells we can use to fight infection, and the platelets we use to help our blood clot. I've mentioned white blood cells a few times so far, so let's talk about those. Our white blood cells are microscopic cells that will launch an immune attack if foreign invaders or pathogens are found in the body. There are a few different types of white blood cells, and they have different ways of attacking these pathogens. But cells are not the only things in our body that help fight off pathogens. Antibodies are also very important in our immune system. Antibodies are going to recognize the antigens found on pathogens and bind to them. This is going to help your body fight off these germs or these pathogens. Antibodies are also created by a specialized type of white blood cell, and these are called B cells, or B lymphocytes. We've talked about pathogens. I'd like to talk about one specific type of pathogen, viruses. Some examples of diseases that are caused by viruses are chickenpox, measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis, COVID-19, and many more. But I'd like to focus on viruses because they infect us in an interesting way. Viruses are tiny things that must replicate inside our cells. They are unable to make copies of themselves by themselves, and so they need to use our cells to replicate. There are different types of viruses, and the genetic material inside those viruses can either be DNA or RNA. And RNA is made up of the genetic information that's needed to make proteins. So mRNA is a type of RNA. Think of it as a postage worker or a postal worker. They're going to transport that information from one part of the cell to the other part of the cell, where in that part of the cell that it's been transported to, the cell will start to make that specific protein. So mRNA is a messenger that carries information from one part of the cell to the other parts of the cell to make proteins. Now that we've gone from the largest parts to the most microscopic parts of our immune system, what I'd like to talk about are the different types of immune responses our bodies can have. Our immune responses can be split into two categories: the innate and the acquired immune responses. The innate immune response is the first line of defense your body has. It's very general, and it will attack any foreign particle or pathogen that enters your body, whereas the acquired immune response is more specific. It'll learn and remember how to fight off more specific pathogens. Since it's the first line of defense against germs, we'll start with the innate immune response. It's going to fight off anything that's deemed to be a threat to your body and consists of an outer layer, or your skin, as well as inner layer protection with the mucus layers that are found within your body. It also consists of general defense cells and proteins. So these white blood cells are very general and will just attack anything. Whereas the acquired immune response will take over when the innate immune response can't destroy those germs or those pathogens. It includes antibodies, as well as specialized white blood cells called T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. Because these cells can remember and have learnt how to fight off specific germs, they can be considered memory cells. Another word I've mentioned a few times so far is the word pathogen. This includes bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungi. Now, antigens are things that can be found on the surface of pathogens. So you can think of these as like the pathogen's hands, per se, and this is the part that's going to interact and attach to our cells. Antigens are any foreign molecule, any substance that will trigger an immune response in our body, and when that immune response is triggered, it can create antibodies against that specific antigen. To help you visualize this a little bit, this is an antigen. It has a very specific shape, and this is an antibody that will bind to that specific antigen with that specific shape. If you look around the screen, you'll notice a few different types of antigens with different shapes. Every antibody will only be able to bind with a specific shape of antigen. Think of them like puzzle pieces. There are different antigens on different pathogens. Different pathogens have the same antigen, so those antibodies can bind to different viruses if they have the same antigen, and they will bind at what we call an antigen binding site. We talked about how our bodies and how our immune systems work. I'd like to talk about the different types of immunity. The first type of immunity I'd like to talk about is passive immunity. This is the type of immunity when a person is given antibodies rather than producing them with their own immune system. So you can think of it like they're being passed the antibodies, or similar to a passive income, you're not working for it, you're not actively involved in that process of creating the antibodies. For example, newborns will acquire the antibodies from their mothers, or if someone's given a blood transfusion and the antibodies are found in that blood. This typically provides a limited protection against different diseases, and it generally diminishes over time. Now, if you can produce your own antibodies, that's called active immunity. You're actively involved in this one. So antibodies are produced when you are exposed to a disease or after getting vaccinated. This type of immunity provides longer lasting protection because your body has learned and remembers how to fight off that disease. Well, what happens if someone is immunocompromised or can't get a specific vaccine? Well, this is where a community comes in and can help. Community immunity is when non-vaccinated individuals are offered protection against a specific disease because of the fact that so many others around them are immune to that disease or have been vaccinated against that disease, that the disease doesn't have the opportunity to spread, or only has very little opportunity to spread within that community, and thus that will protect those who can't be vaccinated. Now that we've talked about how you and your immune system can protect yourself, but as well your community can protect you against different types of diseases, let's talk about some respiratory diseases. The first I'd like to talk about, and you may have heard of, is COVID-19. It is caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Some symptoms can include loss of taste or smell, fever or chills, cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, as well as fatigue, and a few more as well in there. The next respiratory disease is influenza. It's caused by influenza virus. This one can cause the inflammation of your lungs, can give you fever and muscle aches and pains. Now, this one is very interesting because it has caused multiple pandemics and epidemics in the past. The most recent pandemic was in 2009. You may have heard of H1N1, and it's the cause of the yearly flu. This next respiratory disease is measles. It is caused by the morbillivirus. It's also known as rubella. This is a vaccine-preventable disease that some of the symptoms include fever, cough, red eyes, and it's really marked by the eruption of red circular spots on the skin. Now, so far, these three respiratory diseases have been caused by viruses. Different viruses, but viruses nonetheless. This next respiratory disease, whooping cough, or pertussis, is caused by the Bordetella pertussis bacteria. Symptoms can include a spasmodic cough or crowing intake of breath. When they breathe in, you hear a very distinct or whoop sound, which is where whooping cough may have found its name. Another symptom could be low fever as well. Now, all of these are caused by one specific type of pathogen. But this next respiratory disease, pneumonia, can be caused by the bacteria Streptococcus pneumoniae, but can also be caused by multiple different types of bacteria, viruses, and even fungi. It's marked by inflammation or fluid or pus buildup in your lungs. And again, can be caused by more than just one type of bacteria or virus or fungi. Now that we've talked about different types of respiratory diseases, let's talk about how we can prevent ourselves from getting them in the first place. This method is called vaccination. And so we're going to talk about a few different types of vaccines. So the first type I'd like to talk about are the live attenuated vaccines. So live attenuated vaccines are going to use a weakened virus that will produce an immune response without the severe side effects of the disease. So this weakened virus will enter your cell, and your cell will do what your cells do when new information comes into them. It's going to read that information, it's going to copy that information, and it's going to produce copies of that information. It does this during normal cell processes, and therefore will do that with this weakened virus. Now, these virus parts are too weak to cause disease, but what will happen is once copies of that virus are made, they will exit the cell, they will be released to your body, where your white blood cells, so antigen-presenting cells, will learn how to fight off this virus. Some examples of diseases that are vaccinated using this live attenuated vaccine technique include measles, mumps, rubella, varicella, rotavirus, yellow fever, smallpox, typhoid, and some strains of influenza viruses. The next type of vaccine I'd like to talk about is the viral vector vaccine. And so this vaccine uses a modified and harmless piece of a different virus that's associated with the antigen of the harmful virus, and that's going to induce the production of the immune response. And so this harmless virus will enter the cell. Similar process will happen. The cell will read that information. It's going to break down the virus after it's done. But what's going to happen is instructions are going to be read, and it's going to make the target protein. So that protein on the end, or the antigen, will then be displayed on the surface of this cell. Now, what happens when these target proteins are displayed on the surface of the cell, or the antigen is presented on the cell, your body will recognize these antigens and then will build an immune response, or will have an immune response to these antigens, and will be able to fight off future pathogens that show this antigen on their surface. This next type of vaccine is called an inactivated vaccine. So the inactivated vaccine will use a dead virus or bacteria. And so they have been killed through physical or chemical processes, and so these cannot cause a disease. Once that dead virus enters the cell, the vaccine is broken down again into those pieces called antigens, or those target proteins. After it's broken down, the rest of the virus is just inactivated. It can't replicate, it's just broken down. And the antigens that are left will be displayed on the surface of that cell. Similarly to the previous, our body will then recognize those antigens and will build an immune response to those specific antigens. Some examples of vaccines that have been created using an inactivated vaccine is the polio vaccine, rabies, and some influenza vaccines as well. This vaccine is called the mRNA vaccine. So the mRNA, we've talked about mRNA before. So again, it's a messenger that's going to carry instructions on how to build a specific protein. So that specific protein that will produce an immune response to a disease. So when that messenger enters the cell, your cell will read what that messenger has to say. It will read the instructions to make those target proteins, or those antigens. The rest of the vaccine is broken down after it's read, so it just dissolves, disappears, as the rest of them do. And again, the cell will display those target proteins or those antigens on its surface, and our body will form an immune response to this disease. The last type of vaccine that we're going to talk about today is the subunit vaccine. So the subunit vaccine uses pieces of a pathogen, not the whole organism, so that they don't contain any live pathogen. They only use pieces of the pathogens that are introduced into the cell. And this one's a little bit different because the antigen-presenting cell will then bind to these and display them on their surface as well. So types or examples of these are the polysaccharide vaccines, recombinant conjugate vaccines, as well as protein-based vaccines. And what happens when this antigen-presenting cell has this specific antigen on the surface, our helper cells will trigger an immune response to that specific antigen, and it will learn how to fight off any disease, again, that has that specific pathogen or antigen on its surface. That's everything I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining, but now it's time to put what you've learned to the test in a fun game of trivia. All right, everyone, welcome to the trivia portion of our workshop today. We're going to be testing the knowledge of everything that you've just learned. So let's get started. If you would like to keep track of your score, grab yourself some pen and paper. You can pause the video and move forward from there. As well as if you need more time to answer any of the questions, you can pause the video as well. All right, so the first category we're going to be looking at today is organs of the immune system. The second category will be the lymphatic system. The third category will be terminology. Our fourth category is all about immunity. Our fifth category is going to be all about respiratory diseases. And absolutely, our last but not least category will be different types of vaccines. Now, let's start with our $200 question in our first category, organs of the immune system. This organ has mucus or phlegm that traps foreign particles and small hairs, like they're also known as cilia, that wave the mucus upwards so that it can be coughed out. I'm going to give you a few seconds before the answer shows up. If you said, what are the lungs? Or if you said lungs, congratulations, you can add $200 to your total. For our $400 question of organs of the immune system, this waterproof barrier secretes oil with bacteria-killing properties. It protects our body against injury and infection, regulates temperature, and controls the loss of body fluids. All right, and the answer for this one is, what is the skin or the skin? If you answered the skin, add $400 to your total. For our $600 organs of the immune system question, this is a group of organs that has a mucus lining that contains antibodies, and one of these organs contains acid that can kill most microbes. And the answer for this one is, what is the digestive tract? Other acceptable answers are digestive system, the stomach and intestines are all acceptable answers. So if you got any of those, give yourself $600 extra. For our $800 question, organs of the immune system, we have this spongy tissue inside bone that produces the white blood cells we use to fight infection, the red blood cells our bodies need to carry oxygen, and the platelets we need to help clot our blood. If you answered what is bone marrow, congratulations, give yourselves $800. On to our $1,000 question and our last question for the organs of the immune system category. This is a blood filtering organ that removes microbes and destroys old or damaged red blood cells. It also makes disease-fighting components of the immune system. For this organ. If you answered what is the spleen or the spleen, congratulations. Give yourselves $1,000 for this question. All right, let's move on to our next category, which is the lymphatic system. Our $200 question is, these are microscopic things that move throughout your body looking for foreign invaders. And when they find them, they launch an immune attack. What are these? The answer is, what are white blood cells? If you said white blood cells, congratulations. Lymphocytes are also an acceptable answer for this question. On to the $400 question for the lymphatic system. These things created by B cells help the body to fight off germs by recognizing the antigen found on the surface of those germs and mark them for destruction. What are these that grab on to the different germs and pathogens? The answer for this one is, what are antibodies? So if you answered antibodies, congratulations, you can give yourself $400 for that question. On to the $600 question. In the lymphatic system, these structures are located in the back of your throat, and they trap pathogens from the food you eat and the air you take in. They are part of your body's first line of defense against invaders. If you answered, what are the tonsils? Congratulations, give yourself $600 for this question. On to the $800 question for the lymphatic system. These bean-shaped glands monitor and clear out damaged cells. Some of these can be cancer cells. They also store lymphocytes and other immune system cells. If you answered, what are lymph nodes? Congratulations, you can give yourself $800 for that question. On to the last, final $1,000 question for the lymphatic system category. This filters and monitors your blood content. It produces white blood cells called T lymphocytes. This organ is located in your upper chest beneath your breastbone or beneath your sternum, and it's most active before puberty. If you answered, what is the thymus? Congratulations, give yourself $1,000 for that question. Moving on to our terminology category, our $200 question is, these are organisms such as bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungi that cause disease in human beings. What is this one? If you answered, what is a pathogen? Congratulations, give yourselves $200 for that answer. On to the $400 question. These are subparts of pathogens in the body that are capable of causing the disease. They trigger an immune response, which leads to the production of antibodies. If you said, what are antigens? Congratulations, give yourself $400 for that question. On to our $600 terminology question. These are tiny things that multiply within cells and cause diseases such as chickenpox, measles, mumps, rubella, and hepatitis. If you answered, what is a virus? Congratulations, virus was the correct answer. Give yourself $600 for that question. For the $800 question in the terminology category, this is a group of cells that help the body defend itself against disease by remembering prior exposure to specific organisms such as viruses and bacteria, and they will respond quickly. If you answered, what are memory cells? Congratulations, give yourselves $800 for that answer. And our final $1,000 question in the terminology category, this messenger carries information on how to create protein from DNA into a cell, where the cell can then use that information to create and grow a protein chain. If you answered, what is mRNA? Congratulations, give yourselves $1,000 for that last answer. Let's move on to our immunity category. So our $200 immunity category question is, this is the type of immunity that is passed to a person when a person is given antibodies rather than producing them through their own immune system. For example, Newborns can acquire this from their mothers. This provides limited protection against disease that generally diminishes over time. If you answered what is passive immunity, congratulations. Give yourselves $200 for that answer. Passive as well is an acceptable answer for this question. For the $400 question in the immunity category, this is the type of immunity that occurs when the body is exposed to a diseased organism or via vaccination, and it triggers the immune system to produce antibodies and provides long-lasting protection. If you answered what is active immunity or anything that says active, congratulations, you give yourself $400 for that question. On to the $600 immunity question. This type of immunity offers some protection to those who are not vaccinated because the disease has little opportunity to spread since many others are immune to it. If you answered what is community immunity or herd immunity is also an acceptable answer, congratulations, give yourself $600 for that answer. On to our $800 immunities question. This immune response is the first line of defense against germs. It consists of protection offered by the skin and mucous membranes and by the general defense cells and proteins. If you answered what is the innate immune response, congratulations, give yourselves $800 for that. You could also just have said innate, and that's acceptable as well. Now, our $1,000 immunity question. This immune response is more specific. It takes over when the innate system is not able to destroy the germs. It can identify and remember different germs, and it consists of T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, and antibodies. If you answered what is the acquired immune response, congratulations, give yourselves $1,000 for that question. On to our respiratory diseases category, the $200 question. This is a disease caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Symptoms can include fever or chills, cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, fatigue, and a new loss of taste or smell. If you answered what is COVID-19, congratulations, give yourselves $200 for that answer. For our $400 question in our respiratory diseases category, this is an infection caused by bacteria, viruses, or fungi. This causes inflammation or swelling and fluid or pus buildup in the lungs. An example of a common bacteria that causes this infection is Streptococcus pneumoniae. If you answered what is pneumonia, congratulations, give yourselves $400 for that question. On to our $600 question for the respiratory diseases category. This is a type of virus that has caused multiple pandemics and epidemics in the past. The most recent pandemic was in 2009, H1N1, and is the cause of the yearly flu. Symptoms can include fever, muscle aches and pains, and inflammation of your respiratory tract. If you answered what is influenza, congratulations, you can give yourselves $600 for that answer. Moving on to our $800 respiratory diseases question. This is a highly contagious vaccine-preventable disease that's caused by a morbillivirus. Symptoms include fever, cough, red eyes, and it's marked by the eruption of red circular spots on the skin, also known as rubeola. If you answered what are measles, congratulations, give yourselves $800 for that question. On to our last question in the respiratory diseases category. This is a vaccine-preventable infectious disease caused by the Bordetella pertussis bacteria. Some symptoms can include a convulsive, spasmodic cough, followed by a crowing intake of breath. If you answered whooping cough or pertussis, those are acceptable answers. Congratulations, you can give yourselves $1,000 for that answer. And for our last category, the types of vaccination $200 question is, this is a live weakened virus that produces an immune response without the severe effects of the disease. These include measles, mumps, rubella, varicella, rotavirus, yellow fever, smallpox, and some influenza and typhoid vaccines. If you answered what is a live attenuated vaccine, congratulations, you can give yourselves $200. If you just said attenuated, congratulations, that is an also acceptable answer. For our $400 types of vaccination question, this is a vaccine made from viruses and bacteria that have been killed through physical or chemical processes. These killed organisms cannot cause disease. These include polio, rabies, and some influenza vaccines. If you answered what is an inactivated vaccine, congratulations, give yourselves $400 for that answer. Our $600 types of vaccination question is, this is a vaccine that uses a messenger to teach our cells how to make a protein, or even just a piece of a protein that produces an immune response to a disease. If you answered what is mRNA or what is an mRNA vaccine, absolutely, congratulations, give yourselves $600 for that question. Our $800 types of vaccination question is, this is a piece of a pathogen, not the whole organism, so they don't contain any live pathogens. These include polysaccharide vaccines, conjugate vaccines, and protein-based vaccines. If you said what is a subunit vaccine, congratulations, give yourselves $800 for that question. And our last question of today, our last $1,000 question in the types of vaccination category, this is a vaccine that uses a modified harmless piece of a different virus associated with an antigen that can induce the production of important instructions that are delivered to the body's cells, which can produce an immune response. If you answered what is a viral vector vaccine, congratulations, give yourselves $1,000 for this question. And thank you very much for taking the time to play this trivia game with us today. Count up your points. We'd be happy to hear what your points are if you wanted to share them down below in the comments. We will also have our survey link in the bottom in the comments as well. If you'd like to answer that, that would be absolutely wonderfully and greatly appreciated. I hope you have yourselves a wonderful day, and thank you so much for joining us for our Understanding Your Immune System workshop with Science North.